There's no problem too big or small, no issue too hot or cold, and no subject these gentlemen won't talk about. Let's head into the lab to see what they're working to figure out today.
Never seen movies. I went through a phase, like if you asked me about films that came out between about 92 and 96 foreign films, I'm great at that. Other than that, I don't have a clue. I listened to the Golden Globe announcements on NPR, and I was like,
I don't know any of this.
Probably not going to. Not see any of them. So you've seen Aladdin then, Centauri?
Yes, this is a miracle. That was when I was in 4th grade, so yeah.
Got it.
I just found out you went to North High.
Yeah.
I was sitting next to Jean.
Daisy.
What is it?
Daisy?
Daisy,
Yes.
yes.
Jane and I have known each other since we were 13 years old.
Oh, great.
And so, were you meeting with her? Have you met her dad?
About the abolished private
Yeah,
prisons.
we have him in 2 weeks or yeah.
That's what he said.
Yeah.
We were having a great conversation, just thinking through how Local First could be helpful in some way, or I was making recommendations to people they needed to talk to. So, in any case.
Awesome.
So tell me a little bit about what you're doing here.
Well, Centauri and I started this effectively 2 months ago, and we've done 10 shows, launched everything on January 1st. We do it every week, but I think that we were both a little bit frustrated by the political climate and a lot of, it's important to be aware, but is anybody doing anything about it?
So how do you turn awareness into action? Our very first podcast we did the day after the election, which was very interesting. Yeah.
So that's the whole point
I
of the
had
show.
scheduled myself for a talk at 7:30 in the morning the day after the election.
Did you actually go speak?
I did. I had to.
Oh.
I slept about 30 to 45 minutes, maybe. Yeah, it was somber. It was
People were
brutal.
yeah.
Everybody was like a zombie that morning. So hard. Yeah. Never do that again.
Right.
Never ever do that.
No matter what happens.
Right. No matter who's running or what the circumstance, do not schedule something after an election.
7:30 in the morning.
Yeah.
So that's the whole idea, and we aspire to have it be very, very conversational.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll just talk.
Sure. So this stays down in front of the three of us?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great.
Yep, and I have a pretty big voice, so I could probably go back like this. Centauri does not, so I encourage you to lean in. So
Okay. Sounds
so yeah, it'll certainly pick up everything, and we can go for 2 hours, but I think you need to leave a quarter of. Is that right?
What did I say that I had? Did I say I had 45 minutes?
No, I just from Park saying we could probably do it between 35 and 45
Oh,
minutes.
that's fine if you want to leave it at that. It's up to you.
Yeah.
I believe I have a 5 o'clock phone call after this. Yes. Wait, no, a 4 o'clock phone call. What did you say?
Yes.
4 o'clock.
Perfect.
Okay,
So that is the plan.
great. Okay.
Sweet.
All right. Well, let's get into it and get down to it. Welcome to Figure It Out. This is George Grombacher. Joining me as always is Centauri Minor.
Hello, folks.
Good day to you, sir. Helping us move from awareness to action today is the founder and executive director of the nation's oldest and largest organization supporting and promoting local business, Local First Arizona. Welcome, Kimber Lanning.
Great, thank you so much for having me.
We are excited to have you. I was listening this morning to a synopsis of a very famous Harvard study called the Harvard Grant Study. It went for 75 years. It might still be going on, but it was tracking the lifetime of people trying to figure out what made them happy.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the big takeaways is that the more areas in your life you can get connected, the better.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that's something that we're suffering from right now is a lack of connectivity, and certainly something we do not get from Amazon.com or Wells Fargo.
So true. So, and to dovetail on that, the Knight Foundation actually did a study called Soul of the Community a couple of years ago. And that study showed that connection to place is the single most leading indicator in places that have prosperity. So they found that when people build a prosperous community, it's because they really feel connected there, and that when they're connected, they're more likely to vote, they're more likely to volunteer, they're more likely to give charitably, they're even more likely to pay their taxes without complaining because they understand we pay taxes and it goes toward the beautification of our community, to our police and fire. They're not so disconnected. In some places, people just get mad about quote unquote taxes,
Right.
and they mix up income tax and property tax and sales tax, and they're very different things, and they're used for very different things. I mean, sales tax is a very localized tax. So I couldn't agree with you more, and I believe that's really what we're trying to do at Local First is better connect people to this place.
Mm-hmm.
And what do you think is driving the disconnection among Phoenicians in general? What is?
I think there's a
behind
number of things, but I also think, what's really interesting is if you look at a person's behavior, let's say you grew up in Chicago and you just fiercely love Chicago, and now you live out here in Phoenix, Arizona, and quite frankly, you won't shut up about how great Chicago is, and you've lived here for
Very
15
true.
years, right? And if you ask that person why they love Chicago, they're going to tell you a variety of things, but they're going to say the chefs in restaurants.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to say something like, in Chicago, I had the same barber for 40 years.
Right.
They might say, in my town, I knew the little neighborhood stores. Everybody knew my name. I could call them, and they'd have my stuff waiting. All of those things represent local business ownership. And you can take that same person and move them out of Chicago, move them out here to Phoenix, and they eat at Applebee's and shop at Target, go home and close their garage door, and they never realize they significantly change their behavior. And in fact, many of those people, if you ask them, they'll say, we don't have a choice. I did interviews with people. I had one guy who said, I had the same barber for 40 years in Chicago. I come out here and all you guys have is supercuts. And I was like,
It's not true.
that is so not true. Give me 20 minutes, I'll find you 20 barbers. And he goes, really, where? And he lived here for 10 years. So it feeds that notion that that's all we have. Those businesses, I'm not even criticizing those businesses, but they do not make you feel connected. You could have that experience anywhere. So people often don't think about this. The role that local business ownership and those connections you make, how they make you feel about your hometown. Arguably, we could all get on a plane and fly to Chicago tomorrow, and we could eat our breakfast at Denny's and our lunch at Applebee's and go to Chili's for dinner, and then we could shop at Kohl's and Home Depot and Lowe's and go, what's the big deal? I don't get it. Why do people love this town so much?
Right.
No criticism, but it would be any town USA, right? So I think it's critically important, this connection thing.
It is, and it seems as though a lot of the things that connected us in the past, like organized religion, fewer and fewer people are taking part in that, and maybe it's because we are moving around a lot more, so it's that same effect.
I think so. 2/3 of Arizonans came from somewhere else, and they don't have that
Wow.
history. Yeah, they don't have that history and connection to what is the flavor of this place, and I think that's something that we've always struggled with. And there's so many layers to that. For example, if you go to, let's just pick Philadelphia or Charleston, those communities were built before the automobile, and they have smaller, more walkable communities. The building stock is more human scale, and therefore those older buildings that have smaller square footage are incubator spaces for small and independently owned businesses. Out here in our geography, for many, many years, we sprawled out, we built it new, and you build new, you build for chains. And in fact, it goes right on down the line. I can dig through the layers of this. Out here in Phoenix, if you want to protect and preserve an older building, or if you want to build something that's creative and different, it is very hard to get it funded. Because the majority of our money here is in non-local banks. So the people who are underwriting the loans here in Arizona do not live here, and they are not connected here. And therefore, you walk in, you're an independent guy that wants to open up a wine bar in an old house. It's incredibly hard to get that funded. And so there's many layers. Part of it is our geography. A part of it is the financial outlook for Arizona. We have 96% of our money deposited in non-local banks. 76% of that money is just in Chase, Wells, and B of A. Those three banks don't have localized decision making, and largely they lend big. I did a study looking at their lending habits as we were coming out of that last recession, and average loan size was $2 million. And that pretty much cuts out small business altogether,
Right.
and we're a small business state.
Yeah.
If we want to diversify our economy and continue to create jobs, we needed to make sure that our money is deposited in banks that have a local bank president that actually makes the decision and can drive down and look at your project. So there's many layers to why our community looks the way it does, and why I think we have to work harder to connect people to our place.
Are the places that you mentioned, like the Philadelphia or Charleston, are they? I'm curious to know do you know the fraction, the percentages of banks that are local there?
For those
Who's
two,
doing it well?
For those two states, I don't know, but I just did a comparison with Colorado in Denver. First Bank that is based out of Denver is the second largest privately owned bank in the nation, and in the state of Colorado, they're second in holdings after Wells Fargo. Incredibly large, and if you go to their downtown that is hip and happening, and they're leveraging their downtown to land big tech companies and all of that economic development stuff that we salivate over. And you can go one at a time. First Bank funded it, First Bank funded it, First Bank funded it, First
Wow.
Bank funded it. Right, so I was able to put up side by side the amount of holdings that they have right there and how much of their great redevelopment occurred because they had that money locally to lend.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's quite remarkable the way these things are connected.
So 10 years from now, when Amazon gobbles up the Rosses and all the big box stores, and we're left with strip mall after strip mall of empty businesses, what do we do then?
Well, that I think is what we work to prevent from happening in the first place.
Right.
What happens then is that we are subject and vulnerable to certainly not being anywhere near the greatest nation on earth, and we are subject to invasion and extreme poverty. It paints a very, very, very bleak picture, but I will say the nicest way I can say it is the end of the USA. I don't know how else to say that. I'm not even a dramatic person. But our founding fathers set up laws to prevent, they're called antitrust laws, to prevent one company from dominating. Amazon now gets nearly 50% of every online sale. There are tremendous gains in the size of the company. Every 55% of every online search now starts with Amazon. And studies are now starting to come out that show they are guilty of bait and switch. They are guilty of all kinds of funny business. I'll give you an example. If you're a member of Amazon Prime, a lot of people say, oh, Amazon Prime, I get the best price. Where that notion came from, I don't know. But if you actually compare, 58% of the time you're paying more as an Amazon Prime member than you would as a regular everyday Joe. 24% of the time you pay the same. And that only leaves 18% of the time you're actually saving money. Another good example is they might show you a picture of a bag of erasers, you know, the little erasers that go on the end of a pencil. You know, you get 12 of them in a bag. And then you get to the checkout and you've actually ordered one pencil eraser for the same price and you don't catch it. This happens all day, every day. And you can look at the comments on Amazon. People blame themselves. That's a typical bait and switch. If Walmart did that, people would be all over them. But when Amazon does it, people go, oh, stupid me, I just paid $6.49 for a single eraser. You can't show somebody a picture of 12 erasers in a bag, get them to click buy, and then send them one eraser. What's more is that, you know, there's a few very high-profile cases that Amazon has pushed through to ban people from Amazon. You know, one guy, I don't remember the numbers, so, you know, don't quote me. Let's just say he bought thousands of items on Amazon, and he returned 113 of them, and they very publicly banned him from Amazon. So in the comments are people saying, oh, I bought one eraser, I'm an idiot. Well, I don't want to return it because I don't want to get banned from Amazon. I mean, it's brilliant what they've done, you know. And Amazon shoppers are largely more affluent, and they look down their noses at the Walmart shopper. Amazon actually pays 9% less than Walmart.
Oh, wow.
Oh, yeah. So this company is quietly, not quietly, very loudly gobbling up jobs. The most recent study that just came out from the Institute for Local Self-Reliance demonstrates that Amazon has received $750 million worth of subsidies. They can be held directly accountable for $500,000 worth of property tax loss. and 150,000 jobs. And when people think
And that's
about,
on a national level, or?
yeah,
Okay.
and those numbers are as of the end of 2015, because that's the most recent that we have. But most people think when we talk about job loss, we're talking about retail jobs. And this is my favorite, is when a lot of the traditional economic developers, they might go, those aren't very important jobs. They're retail jobs, they're not high-paying jobs.
Right.
But that's not what I'm talking about. So I'll use this way to explain it. Starbucks could have 30,000 locations, and they're still only going to have one accountant, and they're going to have one graphic designer, they're going to have one website developer, one payroll service provider, and one attorney, right? And that number goes on and on. Those are secondary jobs. You got 30,000 independent coffee shops. They got 30,000 accountants out there. You got 30,000 website developers, 30,000 payrolls. That's dollars circulating through an economy. And when you get rid of those frontline businesses, it's the secondary jobs that I'm talking about. They make the world go round. If you end up with one big company, then how the hell are you going to be an accountant or a graphic designer or a website developer, right? Those jobs all go away. So it's the ecosystem of jobs, not just the retail jobs we're talking about. So the American public right now is really snoozing, and they're not aware of this happening, but the amount of job loss, we've been duped. Can you imagine they took your sales tax and subsidized Amazon to destroy jobs in your community? We should be waking up to that. We should be very angry.
It is terrifying. The Dow hit 20,000 today, and so I was paying attention to it, and there was an Amazon story saying that the market capitalization of Amazon is $390 billion, which is bigger than the next 8 largest retailers combined. Included in there is Walmart and Target. So
yeah. So, if that doesn't get your, the back of the little hairs on the back of your neck standing up, we should all be paying attention. I can't tell you how many people say to me, oh, but it's so convenient, and getting people from this idea about what's convenient to measuring it over a lifetime. I always tell people, oh, you have kids? How convenient is it going to be when they're 35 years old and they still haven't moved out because there's not enough jobs to go around?
Is that typically, that was going to be one of my questions, is that something like a Walmart or an Amazon, the pushback, and maybe from even the work that Local First does and saying buy local, is folks saying, well, I can just order online and it comes to my house and it's so easy. How do you counteract that behavior? How do you get people to say, all right, I understand what you're saying from an economic standpoint, I will now shift my behavior?
Right, so there's several different ways to approach it. The one that we tried to do with Local First Arizona, and I think we're fairly successful, is to encourage people to just shift a portion of their spending. If I said to you, Centauri, you've got to buy all of your clothes at this one boutique downtown, and I'm really sorry they're only open on Tuesdays from 2 to 4. Clearly you're not going to ever do that. But if I said, hey, look at your current spending, and if you're spending 28% locally right now, I want you to get to 38%.
Okay.
And so when you encourage people to make small shifts that are bite-sized, they usually start thinking more proactively about their spending. If I can just get folks to think about their spending as a means to building a better or worse economy and future for all of us, I tell college students all the time, you're spending, you're actually eliminating your own job opportunities. That's what you're doing. And if we can reconnect people to economy, I feel confident that people will do more than just that 10%. But it's the psychology of saying, listen, I'm not trying to tell you you have to do everything. Like, here's some simple examples. Choose Harkins Theaters. Their competitor's not even an American company, right? Family owned and operated, that money stays right here in Arizona. Choose Shamrock Dairy Products when you're at the grocery store. Choose Hickman's Eggs, Go to Bash's, Food City, or AJ's when you have a chance to do so. Get your domain registered with GoDaddy. Utilize Infusionsoft instead of Salesforce. There's a million ways. And so people, I think, psychologically, they go to the hardest thing. Well, I'll never be able to buy my clothes, but that's just such a small fraction of your actual spending, you know what I mean?
Right. For most people going to the grocery store, whether you get Shamrock or whatever, doesn't make a difference. So might as well go with the local option.
I always give people, Hickman's, they have a training program to take ex-convicts and get them reacclimated to going back to work. Isn't that worth an extra 5 cents a carton? And people go, yeah, it is, So part of our job at Local First is better telling that story. Hickman's is the hometown pride. So there's lots of ways that folks can do it. The convenience thing, again, They're a masterful opponent. They're an absolutely masterful opponent. And I don't exactly know how to motivate some folks who are not interested in being social in the first place. And those people are out there. But I can tell you that it's easy to get folks excited to go out to business when business is great. And so we also work really hard on making the independent business just have a killer and unique experience that you can't duplicate somewhere else. And one other thing that we've been talking internally is about starting a funny advertising campaign to get people thinking about it. You know, it's sort of like, remember that time when he proposed to you and you had to go down to the Amazon warehouse and said no one ever? You know what I mean? And like, and make it so that it actually makes people laugh. Or like the guy that drops a bouquet of flowers from a drone into your yard, and she's all, "What is that?" You know. I think it would be really funny to tackle some of that and make people remember that. Hey, guess what? Stores. There's stores that are open, and they're good for the economy.
Right. A couple of ways I want to go with this, but can you break down for every dollar that I spend on Amazon versus a dollar spent here in Arizona, where the money goes?
Sure. There was a study that was done by the Institute for Local Self-Reliance a few years back, and they measured it in terms of jobs. So if you spend, as Americans, if we collectively spend $10 million at independently owned businesses, it creates and sustains 114 jobs. If we spend $10 million in chain stores, it creates and sustains only 50 jobs. And now think about my Starbucks example, right? So you're creating 50 jobs by spending in chain stores. So that's a significant number of jobs that go away. You spend the same $10 million on Amazon, you get 14 jobs. So it's
extremely efficient.
Incredibly shocking.
And eliminating jobs.
Right. I mean, and people are so disconnected. It was powerful. I was talking to this woman, and she was bragging about doing all of her holiday shopping online, and this is before Amazon was collecting sales tax for the state of Arizona. I mean, the amount of economic leakage from our communities was staggering,
right.
And yet still convincing our elected officials to do something about it, to level the playing field. So, all right, if the sales tax thing is not a good idea, then let's just do away with it altogether. Why do I, as a small retailer, have to collect sales tax if they don't? So once we did that, it kind of plugged that hole. But this was before Amazon had done it. She's bragging to me about, I didn't even have to pay sales tax, how much she had saved. And then later in the conversation, I found out her husband was a firefighter. And I said to her, wow, I said, what an interesting strategy. You're trying not to pay into the coffer. You're proud that you avoided paying into the coffers that fund your husband's salary. Aren't they laying off firefighters right about now? This was during the recession. And her face just paled because it's not that she didn't care. She never thought of it. I mean, how powerful is that you're so disconnected? We have to stop thinking of the economy as something far away that somebody else is going to fix for us. And we have to stop thinking as our own budget as some sort of isolated bottom line. We're all breathing the same air, and if it's going to work, we have to contribute to it and to think strategically about how we're going to grow Arizona's economy. We simply cannot all sit at home and order on Amazon and then scratch our heads and wonder where did all the jobs go. It's not possible.
What is a good first step for folks to start educating themselves? If I want to actually become active in this movement, what do I do? Other than shift my spending habits.
Right, so get connected to us at Local First. I mean, we have a program for individuals. Right now it costs $20 a year to become a localist. You'll start getting newsletters that talk about fun local things that you can do, and you'll surround yourself with people who are all trying to learn. We're going to be starting a new campaign that gives people practical steps for things they can do, like the ones I just gave to you. And those will be coming out on a regular basis just to get people to go, oh wow, I can do that, oh, there's a Harkins right by my house, or whatever it might be. Our goal is to make it easier than you think it is, because many people think it's complicated or it's hard, and particularly young people who don't remember pre-Amazon. We need to help them remember that, gosh, there's all these great experiences out there just waiting for you.
So do you feel that there is shame these, is there a place for a Target in a community or a Walmart?
Oh, sure. I'm not silly enough to think that they're going to go away. And I understand the sort of belief that going to one place and getting everything you need is somehow a cost savings. But the reality, again and again and again, will show us that it's not. And that, we're looking at a study right now that shows, for example, that Staples, Office Depot, and Amazon are all guilty of actually raising their prices for back to school sales. Yeah, they know parents are just going to be in a rush, and they're trusting the brand, and they go out and buy, and every single time they're actually paying more. and so
Good little scam.
it is. They're really brilliant about this, and it's the power of advertising and people's belief systems and associating with a brand. But I think that the important thing is that we need to make local business competent and competitive. And we need to call out subsidies. Cabela's out in Glendale got a $68 million subsidy. Bass Pro and Mesa got a $32 million subsidies. At one point in time, Walmart was averaging $25 to $30 million per store. And so for those of you who are listening who may not know what a subsidy is, that's when government comes in and offers them extreme benefits. So it could be cash, it could be free land, it could be infrastructure, but it also could be a 10-year tax abatement. That's what Cabela's got. So that means that you go in and you buy something from Cabela's and you pay your sales tax, and they get to keep it for 10 years. Walmart was the one that mastered that, and they said, oh, well, you can't pay us to move into your community, then give us a 10-year tax abatement. And so that's money that's directly coming out of libraries and education and roads and everything else. And we need to be very clear with the American public how that has not only created a place where we're subsidizing cheap prices. It's costing us a fortune. The way I teach my audiences is I'll tell them, I'll say, okay, you love music? All right, my little music store, 50% off forevermore. Forevermore, you just need to give me $10,000 up front. And they'll go, well, no. And I go, well, that's what we do to get these cheap prices. Right. And so part of it is just educating, informing, and helping people get to a place where they're outraged, And I think that it's important that we stop this dialogue about free market society, because we're not in a free market society. If we want to get back to that, then we got to have an honest conversation about stopping subsidies, about enforcing antitrust, and truly create a level playing field. Right now our oil is subsidized, our food is subsidized, our banks are subsidized. We're paying for all of this, and we're so disconnected that we somehow think that that's okay. And so half of the battle is educating and reconnecting people about how the economy actually works, and empowering them to do something about it.
I might even think it's more than half, but certainly a lot.
Yeah.
You talked a minute ago about how it's important to teach young people who they don't remember a time before Amazon. And it seems like the rise of craft beer and Uber and Airbnb and DIY, it seems like people want to sort of get involved locally and just do things, right?
Mm-hmm. So it's interesting what you said. So craft beer, to me, is definitely a local concept. My little record store, I think you're seeing it. Last year, selling vinyl records, we had the best year we've ever had in 30 years. And that's a lot of young people who want to go through playing records. Think about that. They could do digital downloads for free, but they are choosing to buy records. And so there is something in there. Mm-hmm. But Uber, I would not put in that category. I think they are a wolf in sheep's clothing, and they are very much a corporate entity that is actually replacing career drivers with hobbyists. So we used to have cab drivers who had insurance, who built a career, and who had families at home that they provided for. No more. They have been eliminated by hobbyists who, and this is a company that wouldn't think about taking care of their drivers the way a cab company used to in the old days. So I do not put them in the same category. I put them in the same category as Amazon. It is convenient. We're not thinking about where our money goes, and but that's I just wanted to name that as I think Airbnb comes closer to a shared economy concept, but I would say there's nothing shared about Uber.
That's
Yeah.
sort of reasonable.
Yeah. So, but it's interesting. I think that we're raising a generation that thinks that convenience is the name of the game, and I think that's a dangerous precedent. It should be about relationships. It should be about value, quality exchange, and we've forgotten that. I think that, and that's a dangerous place to go. When convenience is your number one criteria, that sets us up for disaster.
Right. People are motivated certainly by gain, but they're twice as motivated by loss. So how best to message to people? You try to scare the heck out of them. You try to say, you're going to be a happier person if you do this.
That is the $1 million question. And I don't think that there's a silver bullet.
Probably not.
I think what I'm working on is, I go and I speak to incredibly left-leaning groups. I speak to business groups. I speak to retirees. I just went and spoke to the Apache Junction Tea Party Association. I will speak to any group to hear what resonates with them.
Yeah.
And if I can get all of those groups fired up and really thinking about pulling their money, I call it pulling your money out of Wall Street, then people recognize that the closer we can control, the assets that we're investing in. Because I look at spending as we're investing in an asset. It's like all these people suddenly woke up and realized their money was in Wells Fargo, and Wells Fargo's investments were completely values misaligned, right? And we think we're innocent of that. No, move your money. I mean, we talked, Centauri, about what's next, all right? Where are we at? There's a lot of challenge facing our nation right now, and I think the number one thing I would encourage folks to do is move your money. Move it to a community bank that has localized decision making, and if you're a small business owner, it's amazing what community banks can do.